और आइए आप सीधे लिए चलते हैं, वित्त मंत्री अरुण जेटली कुछ बोल रहे हैं।
So if we look at the various trends we've seen globally in this year, the Brexit vote surprised many people. Most people felt that eventually one of the world's most mature democracies will not vote the way it did. But then inequalities, benefits cornered by a few, the desire to take their own decisions, all this impacted the vote. The US presidential election also saw a lot of cynicism in the vote. Finally, the party which won, or whose candidate won, was traditionally regarded as a trade-friendly party. The Republicans were always more trade-friendly than the Democrats. And the global situation, as also the US situation, had pushed them into taking an excessively protectionist position. Cynicism was taken at its peak where in Latin America, Colombia, by a referendum rejected the peace treaty, that we don't want peace. Now this is a very unusual vote for a country and a position to adopt. The recent Italian referendum and the anticipated vote in certain larger European nations all make the global situation very unpredictable. It's certainly slower, and the world economy therefore is going to move slower than it was in the earlier years, and it's therefore necessary for various countries to actually determine their own course themselves, because the global trends are not particularly helpful. Amongst emerging economies, if we look at India, I think it's a refreshing change from what's happening in the rest of the world. 3 years ago, an economy which was being regarded as a part of the fragile five, today unquestionably is regarded as one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing major economy in the world. And if we look at the last 1 year in India, and I'm referring only to last year because this is your annual meeting, it's always good to reflect on the recent events of the year. I think we've had a series of very important changes. The first, which has been advocated for a very long time, but never really could be implemented, that instead of one person, you now have a monetary policy committee. So a far more broad-based body with a statutory backing, which now decides various decisions relevant to the monetary policy. A big departure from the past. We've for decades spoken in terms of rationalizing subsidies, and therefore giving it the statutory support under the Aadhaar legislation which was passed earlier this year. We now find that in various areas we are being able to check leakages, we are being able to target subsidies in the direction in which they were meant. And this has indeed helped us to change even the course of discussion. If you recollect the 2014 elections, what was the content of the discussion? Whether it should be 9 subsidized cylinders for everyone, including the wealthy, or it should be 12. That was the thought process. And suddenly you have only the more deserving who are entitled to it. The very poor are entitled to more subsidized, if not free, in the first instance. And those who can afford it will give it up. And therefore, in a true sense, this rationalization of subsidies, whether it's petroleum products or it's gas, and then pilot projects with regard to fertilizer, food, in all these areas, we made a significant beginning, and it's led to a large amount of savings. The passage of the insolvency and the bankruptcy law and the establishment of the institutions necessary for enforcing it, I think was another important development of this year. By far, one of the most important developments was the passage of the Constitution Amendment for the Goods and Services Tax. I'll refer to the present position just a moment later. And then, of course, the government took a somewhat courageous step in the direction of the high denominational currency ceasing to be a legally valid tender and went in for a large currency swap or an exchange.
वित्त मंत्री अरुण जेटली को आप सुन रहे थे। फिक्की के वार्षिक अधिवेशन में वित्त मंत्री अरुण जेटली ने कहा कि भारत की अर्थव्यवस्था तेजी से आगे बढ़ रही है।